So you join me in the workshop this evening with a Scots pine on the bench. It's early autumn here in the UK, and this time of year we like to bring Scots pines in, clean out the old needles, prune back where appropriate to keep the growth compact, and pluck needles for the balancing of the vigour, so on and so forth. And at that time we can perhaps do some branch selection, get rid of weak stuff, so on and so forth. I bought this sight unseen a few years ago from somebody who ought to have known better, and he omitted to tell me that it was a wraparound. I don't even think you can call that a wraparound. That's just basically it's been nailed on there, hasn't it? Anyway, we take a quick look around the other side. We have got a beautiful piece of deadwood here, no doubt about that. I've just been taking wire off this tree, but this piece of deadwood is absolutely humongous behind here, and it's actually, I think, having looked at it at some length, it's a stump of a tree upside down. So I think these pieces of wood that are spiralling off out of it, if you try and look at it the other way up, that's certainly the base of a tree that's been, by the look of this stump here, growing on a rock. You can see some roots have been cut. Yeah, so and then there's our little piece of Scots pine growing up there. The issue that you'll know with Scots pines, anybody that keeps them, is this sort of floppy branch issue. Now, it's the primary survival mechanism of a Scots pine that it's infinitely flexible. That's how they become these amazing shapes, and because they're very flexible, that makes them able to survive some fairly hostile conditions, because they can just bend and adapt and move in whatever position they need to be, whereas a more rigid tree would just be broken and that would be the end of it. So a Scots pine is infinitely flexible, which is what we really want in bonsai, because it allows us to create and make amazing shapes. We find amazing shapes in nature. But then, of course, on the flip side of that, we end up with this type of thing. Because it's very flexible, you need quite a significant thickness of wood to hold the weight of a branch in place without assistance from wire. So we always have this sort of push and pull with the Scots pine. So, having said all that, I think what we need to do is give this tree the benefit of the doubt. So let me just walk you through what we've actually got here. So here is the our stump end of the deadwood, and obviously this piece is all that's alive coming up through here, and over the years you can see there is a big crack that's developed there. And what's happening is, where this was nailed or bolted through, because they didn't take the bark off the inside, the bark is swelling between the deadwood and the live part of the tree, and everything's continually swelling and getting tighter. So as a consequence, you can see this split has opened up, and if I take you around the back, that same split runs through here right the way down into the bottom, which means that basically there's pretty much nothing holding those two together. But what I have found is we're going to be able to get into this crack, clean that out completely, and we're going to be able to bolt this deadwood back together. It's not going to go all the way back together, but it's going to ensure the way I do it, it's damn well going to stay put for as long as I need it to. This piece of deadwood here, it's nice and hard, but obviously it's gradually receding up from the soil, so that's going to be something that's going to need to be looked at. And to me, I assume this was always intended to be the front of this tree. What's with this deadwood? There's just nothing going on here at all, you know. If we then come up here to top of the tree, got a lovely apex. I mean, to the untrained eye, this could almost be a mugo pine. This growth is so lovely and thick and solid, and you can see it all on nice thick branches, so no issues with setting the style of this tree once we actually decide what it's going to be. Then we've got this, look at that beautiful piece of deadwood. That looks pretty much natural to me. Anyway, beautiful piece of deadwood, but it's throwing out towards the back, and it's taking our eye off this way when the rest of the tree is moving this way. So it's kind of throwing the whole thing off completely. But at the moment, it's the only attractive part of the entire thing, in my opinion. So while the top of this tree is really nice and thick and lovely and going to be able to be really good to work with, down here we've got a lot more weak and floppy stuff. We've got this little beauty here, long and thin, all the way out here. Now the issue we have with this is, where are we? Those are pretty much, everything above my hand is all dead. There's no live buds in any of that at all. This secondary zone is weak, and then all the strength is in, what's that, about 11 buds on the end. So ultimately that whole branch is about 18 inches before we even get to any green, so there's no way we're going to be able to use that. Then we've got another similar scenario here with this one, but even worse, look up in here, there's this massive great big branch which has had the end cut off, and all there is this little tiny piece on the end out here. I don't know why on earth I'm going to keep that one. So all the time this is becoming a tree that's going to be a lot easier to manage, but still, I don't know, nothing particularly redeeming about the whole thing. You know, for those who aren't aware, you can't really have a front somewhere like this because you can't see any of the life part. You need to see the life part going into the soil, and that's not happening here. We could get it from this view, but I don't know, with a little imagination this could be quite obscene. I'm not using this as the front of my tree. So before we go any further, this decision is made, this one is going to go. When we're cleaning a Scots pine, what we're doing is basically taking third-year needles. Scots pines keep needles for 3 years. We've got this year, last year and the year before. If you look very closely, there's always a little difference between the two. Also, the current year's needles are always a lot greener and a lot cleaner. So all we're doing is just taking a few needles at a time and gently pulling those just slightly towards the front of the shoot. All the time looking between the needles for any adventitious buds that may have popped up. Obviously Scots pines don't produce a profusion of buds, so any that do should be guarded carefully. So once we've plucked that through, all we've got is this year's growth and then the bare branch behind, leaving any side shoots and any back buds that may have occurred. Even though this branch, which I believe might be quite significant in the future, is really weak, there's no particular reason why. Strong on the extreme ends, everything else is very weak. There are buds, but a lot of them are very small. So when a branch is weak, we want to keep as much vibrant and active material on that branch as we possibly can. So if the branch is getting long and we need it to back bud, the temptation is to cut the ends to stop the buds growing, to force the growth back to there, but it doesn't work like that. You grow the ends kind of bring the sap, they bring the energy and they bring the strength with the sap flow back and forth in the branch, and then the branch begins to swell, and then that reinvigorates it, and then the buds begin to pop. So in order to get a branch like this to back bud, we don't want to cut it and shorten it. We want to focus the energy and the strength to all the most vibrant growing points and encourage as much growth from them as we can, and as a consequence the inner growth will progressively come. And once we get so much on the end, we then walk this sort of, we have to do this balancing act where we have to cut some of it to encourage the inner parts, otherwise obviously it could end up disappearing over into next door's garden. So we're always walking this sort of like balancing act. So in this particular situation, what I've done here is removed as much weak and insignificant material as I can. We've removed all the dead ends, we've removed all of the older needles that are not contributing anything to the equation at all, and that's opened it all up nicely. We can get the sunshine in here. By the time we get this wired, we'll get this all obviously turned up into the light nicely, because no branch is ever going to grow well while it's hanging down. It's the branches that point upwards that grow strongly. The branches that hang down almost never, not Scots pines, almost never grow with any significant strength. So obviously we've always got to bear that in mind in the way that we maintain and cultivate the tree over the decades if we want to keep those lower branches strong. So as I'm plucking through this branch is just getting worse and worse. This is the piece that comes, it's actually the first branch on the trunk, and there's just nothing here. I think the whole thing, I've probably got 15 buds, and because the rest of it is already thick, and you know, I'm just going to have to take this off, and it doesn't work, nobody will ever see it. So that's got to go. Trouble is that this has always been designed to go that way, if that were ever a front of somebody's, and all the attractive part of the material is under here. So entirely against my better judgment, I'm going to do this, and we'll see where we end up. Oops, that's a bit smaller. We've had to say goodbye to these lovely branches, and we certainly haven't got, on the face of it, a lot left. But look, I think we've got all enough material here to make something interesting. Still got a bit of wraparound, but let's make it the best wraparound that we can.